Is Liberal MP Jason Falinski from our Sky News Centre. Thanks very much for your time. Let's start on this issue. Is there an explanation needed here at the very least?
No, I don't think there's any explanation needed. Christopher Pyne, and by the way, it's Professor Pyne now. Professor Pyne, like all of us, need a job. He needs to earn income. He's not in breach of the Ministerial Code of Conduct. I understand he sought a job at Sky News, but you've already got everyone you need, so he needed to look for work elsewhere.
If we look at the code, though, the Ministerial Code, surely the intention would cover someone who has worked as Defence Minister and also Defence Industry Minister, so an expert knowledge of billions of dollars of contracts, current and future ones, leaving, and within a month of leaving Parliament, working as a defence consultant. What do you think the intent of the Ministerial Code is there? To make someone wait 18 months or go straight into that job?
Well, I think the intent of this code, like any sorts of codes of this nature, is to ensure that there does not arise a conflict of interest with people dealing with a former member of the government in this particular, when dealing with contracts of this nature. But that's not what Chris is going to be doing. So it's, you know, we're a long way away from the breach of the Code of Conduct or the Ministerial Code in any way, shape or form. And I really think this is a storm in a teacup.
So he can have whatever expertise and knowledge he has there and tell his new employee about it, but he can't lobby face to face and try to work off personal relationships. That's what you think the intent is and what it should be? No,
the intent is that he would not trade in confidential information, and I don't believe that. You can say a lot of things about Christopher, but there's no way he would do that. So unless Stephen Jones or Labor has some information that that's his intention, then I really think they should apologise to him, actually.
Is the point, though, of this code, I mean, we never know, and, you know, I trust Christopher at his word as well, but we never know what someone's going to say behind closed doors. If you set that 18-month limit up, that time, if you like, the gardening leave, then you remove that possibility and people don't have to assume someone's honesty.
Well, that's a really big call, Tom. I don't know of any employment contract in Australia that has an 18-month garden leave clause in it. The courts have been pretty strong on this. Employment courts, industrial relations tribunals have been pretty strong about the length of time that you can enforce garden leave for, and 18 months would be way outside any clause or any time frame that courts have set out at the moment. And let's be very clear, that's not what Chris is doing. That's not what Christopher's doing. So I just think this is just the Labor Party diverting from the facts,
including a job here at Sky News. But again, the point is here: how would you ever know if someone's given a bit of an insight running to their new employer as a defence consultant? How would we ever know that or be able to even press someone on that?
Yeah, well, you would know. You would know because of the actions that the employer takes. In this particular case, EY, could only have occurred because they had inside information. Now, I mean, this is just absurd. We're getting into hypotheticals that aren't ever going to exist. So, you know, frankly, Labor should put up or shut up on this issue.
Let's turn to the tax cut. It looks likely to get through. This is item agenda 1. What's item agenda 2?
Well, the Prime Minister has allocated. Well, the Prime Minister gave a speech this week in Perth where he highlighted that we need to get productivity back into the economy. It's a similar theme that the Governor of the Reserve Bank has been making. If we want to get increases in, or sustainable increases in real wages, then we need to get more productivity back into the Australian economy. He highlighted some deregulation issues that he wants us to look at and that Ben Morton will be looking at. And the other one that he wants to talk about is some reform to our industrial relations system so that employees and employers can start talking directly to each other.
There's nothing ready to go, though, in terms of getting something through Parliament there, is there?
Oh, we've got a whole bunch, like masses of legislation that are hangover from the previous Parliament. We've also got things that we want to do around ensuring that farmers that have been affected by drought and obviously floods as well are being looked after. There's a whole bunch of things that we need to do from day one. I think, Tom, next week you'll see an avalanche of legislation being introduced into the Parliament, even around consumer protection for financial service products. All that sort of stuff is outstanding and will be entering the Parliament again next week. No one will be saying at the end of next week that we don't have enough to do.
Well, I think there's one day of sitting, so I hope you can fill out that particular day an actual a normal sitting, if you like, where you'll be passing legislation. So, yeah, I reckon you'll be able to fill that Thursday. Revelations today from Paul Kelly, Jason Falinski, indicating Malcolm Turnbull involved the Governor-General in trying to stop Peter Dutton becoming Prime Minister because of his Section 44 issue. What did you make of this?
Mate, I wasn't there. That's the first I've ever heard of it. You know, look, mistakes were made, lessons were learnt, we've moved on, we're focused on the business of the people and delivering better outcomes for Australians.
This is a bit different though, isn't it? I mean, this highlights that power of the Governor-General, rarely used but always there.
Well, if you want to have a discussion about constitutional, you know, forms and formats, then I'm very happy to do that. But look, yeah, the head of state, who is, of course, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, she has a whole bunch of reserve powers that never get used. So, yes.
What about the fact Malcolm Turnbull, if you read this piece, Paul Kelly indicates that the men involved, including Christian Porter and some of the others in a separate meeting, were of the understanding, or left with the impression, that Malcolm Turnbull had spoken to the Governor-General about not actually appointing Peter Dutton as Prime Minister if it came to that, and the Governor-General had agreed. Is that an appropriate contact to have made?
Mate, I wasn't there. I don't even know if the contact did or didn't happen. Tom, can I be honest with you? I'm yet to receive a single piece of correspondence or a phone call on this matter. The things I'm getting people contacting me about: cost of living, traffic congestion, why Labor won't pass their tax bills, and how people can get better mobile phone reception in my electorate. So they're the things I'm focused on, to be honest.
But, I mean, this came out this morning, so I'm not surprised you haven't had a deluge yet of this. Do you not think it's important to probe whether or not a Prime Minister at the time was seeking to block someone else getting that position via the Governor-General?
So your question to me is, should I not focus on the drought and the water problems that New South Wales has, and phone reception and traffic congestion, and getting lower taxes and improving cost of living, but rather spend my time talking about something that might not have happened nearly a year ago? I think my answer is no, I'm going to focus on the other things.
Use the highest office in the land, possibly to influence the Governor-General and who would become Prime Minister.
But, mate, he didn't. He didn't, because we had a change of leader.
He didn't.
Well, mate, we had a change of leader. The Governor-General swore them in. You know, as I say, this happened 12 months ago. We've all moved on. There's been an election since then, and we're focused on delivering for, you know, the people we represent.
Would you hope that if it ever came to it and you were on the precipice, no one was waving the Falinski file in front of the Governor-General?
Mate, I'm sure they would. As you know, it's a very thin file.
All right. Can I ask you finally about press freedom? We've got media organisations coming together saying the case has already been made, make some changes, in particular around this warrant process, that one of the raids was done on the say-so of a New South Wales court register who signed a piece of paper and away we went. Was that just too easy for that to happen?
Well, look, the warrant process that the common law has been around for nearly a millennia. You know, that is not to say that it is perfect. That is not to say that when all of this is done and dusted, and there's now a court case that ABC and News Corp are undertaking, that there won't be lessons for the government or for the Parliament, more importantly, to take up and to make amendments to. Michael Sexton, who's the Solicitor General in New South Wales, has made a number of, I think, pretty reasonable and sensible suggestions. They're things that should be looked at, and if there's always a way that we can improve these things, we should. But, you know, we've got to be careful. The search and seizure laws that the state has are things that evolved over 1,000 years. There were a lot of mistakes made in the past, and we need to make sure that we don't just go trampling over 1,000 years of lessons, and that we get it right. But, Yeah, look, I think everyone needs to take a deep breath, see how this plays out and what mistakes were made at the end of it and how there can be improvements.
Jason Falinski, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Nice to speak.